Okay, today we're going to talk about developed and developing countries. First of all, what is a developed country? There's no clear definition by economists, but we can look at a developed country and see there is normally a balance of economic sectors. For example, here we've got the agricultural sector represented here, and maybe the industrial sector, and then you've got the service sector, which is transport. So normally we see, all these different sectors, and also the technological service sector. By service sector, in a developed economy, the service sector is very big, and service sector could be communications, for example, communications technologies, education, transportation, know-how generally, development in medicines, these types of things we can say are service sector. And then we can see also in a developed economy good infrastructure, for example, the transportation, for example, bridges, tunnels, very good motorway system where lots of people and goods and services can be transported quickly. Good communication network with broadband everywhere, so everyone can get access to the internet. You've got power stations, very sophisticated power network where everyone can get enough power to live well. And factories need power to produce, so it's very important. Transportation, communication, so very important this infrastructure to be a developed economy. Also, we see in a developed economy an exceptionally advanced education system. You need the technologies now, the digitalization of education, also the knowledge, the teachers present to be able to transmit these competencies and knowledge. And then a very good hospital system, a very advanced hospital system where people can get cured and cured quickly in good time, so they can return to their lives. So that we can say distinguishes a developed economy from an undeveloped economy. We can see in an undeveloped economy, there is a dominance on one sector, agriculture. There isn't this industrialization. The third world isn't industrialized. They rely on just producing raw materials, whether it's food or some sort of very important material, chemicals, whatever. But they don't have the sophistication to turn these raw materials into finished products. So their role in the economy, the world economy, normally is restricted to one sector, which is agriculture, because it's very simplistic. Another distinguishing feature or characteristic of an undeveloped economy would be the infrastructure. We can see here the roads. This is Afghanistan. The roads can be terrible. They might find some roads of good quality, but not many. And obviously, to really develop, you need a good transportation system to transport goods and services. Also, the power stations are present but not very effective. Maybe they don't have the spare parts here we can see there's not much road transportation system to bring things that are needed. Maybe they need oil or gas, or they need some sort of link to bring in spare parts, etc. So normally that is missing. And then you have the big problems with education. If we think of the developed world's education here in Afghanistan, we can see here they don't even have desks and chairs, and it's a tent. And you've got this blackboard, and obviously the teachers, just to imagine teaching how to speak English, which is an international language, very important to business and commercial links. You need the people on the ground that know English and to teach it. So this is a problem. The schooling is a problem, but also the hospitals are a problem. We've got to remember that schooling, the industry, for a modern industry, really need highly educated people, or minimally educated people, and also the hospitals here. Another hospital in Afghanistan again. We can see how different it is. Not much equipment there, and this is a big problem for the third world, because it really stops progress. If people get ill in Africa, they had a big problem with AIDS, for example, or malaria, and this held them back in terms of progress, economic progress, because all the resources would be going towards medicine, and the medicine obviously is done in the progressed, the developed economy. So all the resources were travelling back to the developed world, and the human resource was often having problems maintaining health, so maintaining a healthy working population. So this is a big problem and distinguishes the third world from the first world. Okay, we do have an emerging economies from the third world, and now we can say these economies are not third world anymore, but we call them BRICS because the first letter of each country spells BRICS, easy to remember then. You've got Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, and these economies have emerged and have progressed particularly fast from the third world. When I was young, particularly India and China were very poor countries. Not so much Russia and South Africa, maybe Brazil too, very poor agricultural economies. Now, all these countries are industrialised and competing with Italy, taking away businesses from Italy, also from America even. A lot of production has gone to China and to other smaller economies. So we do have this phenomenon that's happened in recent years, and we can see these emerging economies going very fast with high percentages in growth, whereas the developed economies are getting growth of about 1-2%, very small growth, very little growth, in fact. Now, to look at reasons for low economic development, first thing we can say is, yes, you've got the agricultural sector, which is very dependent on, and the big problem with this is that it's depended on too much to provide jobs and incomes. Very difficult to change this dependence. If you can think of an agricultural economy, it doesn't need many skills, many competencies. Literally just to go and plant things, wait till they grow and collect them, is very different from a high productive manufacturing environment. So to move from that to that is incredibly difficult because people spend their lives in this agricultural sector, and there's not the time to move and to change people. It's a very slow process. So there's this big dependence on agriculture. Agriculture is not very profitable because many countries, all countries, have an agricultural sector and they protect that with subsidies. So it's difficult for these third world countries to export from their economy because, for example, Italy has a lot of subsidies from Europe to protect the agricultural economy. Europe doesn't want to depend on the third world to eat. Obviously, if we depend on other countries to eat, it could be dangerous. Those other countries would have a power over us, power over our life and death. So we subsidise, we protect that agricultural industry, which maintains agriculture as not so profitable. Even though America exports a lot of food, but it uses high technologies to produce the food. In these poorer countries, they don't have that option. So they don't have the big equipment and sophisticated equipment. They do it by their labour, producing food for local consumption, not for exports generally. Another reason for low economic development is domination of international trade by developed nations. It's very difficult for poorer countries to enter the markets of industrialized markets. So, for example, Mexico for many years had to protect its manufacturing of cars because America produced cars and America could produce cars much cheaper. Obviously, America could produce cars in a bigger way and would benefit from the economies of scale, just from the quantity of production, gave America a competitive edge, a competitive advantage, and Mexico couldn't compete with that. It didn't have the sophistication anyway on the ground, but also it couldn't compete because of the size of production. To build an industry, a car manufacturing, to compete with America, you would have to immediately create a massive multinational company, which is impossible for these poorer countries to do. I put this to demonstrate the economies of scale. If you've got one lorry delivering products, you pay one wage. Here, in a poor country, maybe to export something, you've got a much smaller, lower grade delivery system. You pay a wage still, but they're able just to deliver a third of the product. So it becomes very expensive to compete with these bigger manufacturers. So that's a problem. The domination of the developed world means the undeveloped world can't enter the markets. They haven't got the size and the strength. And then there's a lack of capital anyway. many of these poorer countries have a currency which has little value. So they don't get the value in their economy to pay for the big transformations like new power stations, road systems, etc. Even if they had the people to do it, which often they don't actually have the capital, the value in their currency to do it. So that's a problem, the lack of capital, meaning the lack of value. They could print a lot of currency, but would it have much value? That's the problem. Now, there's an insufficient investment in education, skills and healthcare. It's very, very expensive to educate a modern student. You need technologies, and you need also, the link, the digital connection, the access to internet, etc. But also the teachers. You need teachers which have the know-how and are able to use the technologies and the apps, etc. So obviously they haven't got this, and they haven't got the modern medicine. Any medicine comes from the outside and it's very expensive. So they don't have the ability to invest adequately in education and health service, healthcare. And then the low levels of investment in infrastructure. Here again, a road from Afghanistan. This infrastructure is terrible, and obviously it would be very difficult to transform it. Again, you need the engineers, you need the people that can do it. Are there these people present in these countries? So they've got a high population growth, which means it can be an advantage later on. China has shown this by having a lot of people very cooperating, very solid, having solidarity and working together. You can get to economic prosperity. But obviously the younger people, the very young people, are a burden. They cost money. You're to school. So if you've got a high population, if you've got a lot of young people and not many in comparison older people, you haven't got the workers, because the younger people obviously haven't got the capacity to do competent jobs yet. They need the schooling. They're still a burden when they're young. So the high population might not necessarily be an advantage, even though it can be later on. And then you've got other factors, and there's lots of other factors. Often these governments are unstable. What's behind the poverty is the lack of leadership, the fact that there's no government with a good strategy. You get a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, maybe just interested in the power, and then you've got the corruption and the wars with neighbours. Often the third world has a big problem with conflict and tensions, and a lot of resources goes towards the wars. All the men and the child soldiers go, and all the human effort goes towards fighting neighbours. And corruption is a terrible weight on the economy. No modern multinational company would want to go in a place like Afghanistan if they know they have to pay lots of warlords, bribes, and there's a lot of corruption. They know it's dangerous. They can be attacked, etc. So these structures big economic organisations like Fiat and all the producers of technologies, etc., they wouldn't want to go and set up production in a place that's dangerous and that has an unstable government. And the corruption will really distort any profit. If they start making more profit, then obviously the warlords in Afghanistan will ask for more money, and they will never, there has to be a trust within the economy, between the actors, that, you know, any great effort, any great production and success will get its merit, and we'll see a return on the investment. So anything which creates instability and distrust and distorts the system with corruption will inhibit growth. And it just means the most powerful people, the most dominant people, will be the strongest. With corruption, you know, it's not those that work hardest, it's the mafia, the criminal organisations that do well. That's the problem.